if you're a bit squeamish, look away now or just scroll on, because this video is not for you. So I'm going to be talking about human brains being extracted. So for the next 3 books that I'm currently writing for the Half Dead, I've done a little bit of research and I've discovered how to actually remove a human brain from the skull without damaging it. Because this is one of the processes that happens in the Half Dead in book, I think it's either book 6 or 7, I can't quite remember. But so they're doing some research on the Half Dead and they're removing the brains to kind of examine it and see what's in there, etc, without going into too much detail and giving away storylines and plots and whatever. So what you've got to do is basically, so you've got like the human or the Half Dead, the zombie, lying down on a table. You get a block, it's like a block of wood that's shaped in a particular way, which supports the head. You've probably seen them, like, you know, like when someone's on a mortuary slab, got like a big block behind the head. And then what they do is they get a marker pen and then they draw a line around, right away around the circumference of the skull where the cut's going to go. And usually is kind of like through the eye sockets. And then get a scalpel and then you cut through the skin all the way around. Obviously you've got to cut through not just the skin, but the layers of like muscle and whatever else is veins and tendons and whatever's underneath there. And then once you've done that cut, you then peel off the top of the head, the skin, get rid of that, which exposes the skull underneath. And then what you do is, using that line, the cut what you've already done where the skin is, you then get a saw, a particular kind of saw, and you saw all the way around again. And I've learned that the saw has 2 particular sounds, so it lets you know when you've cut through the bone. So it'll have a particular sound when it's cutting through, and then when it gets right the way through, it'll change like its sound, so you know you've kind of cut through. So you know not to go any deeper because it'll damage the brain. And then once you've done that, you get a hammer and chisel. You put the chisel into the gap that you've just cut and then give it some taps, and then you do that kind of different points all the way around the brain, around the skull, sorry, and that loosens off the top part. And then you can just take the top half of the skull off, exposing a complete brain. And then what you do is, you can't just like take the brain out because it's still attached to certain parts of your body, like the spinal column. And so what you do is you take that off, and then you cut the optical kind of nerves, which is obviously with your eyeballs. So your eyeballs are kind of cut off there. And then at the back here, you've got obviously your spinal column. So your brain is attached to the spinal column, all the veins, arteries and things that are running through there. So that is kind of severed with either a knife or a big pair of scissors. Like that. And then the brain is lifted out and then put aside for examination. How delightful.